Okay, no frills, you dig? We got 20 head studs. We're trying to align into a single head. You take a straight edge and you hit all the short ones on the height all the way across. When I say a straight edge, I mean a good straight edge made in America. Something nice, you know. You do the short ones on both sides, and you do the middle ones and the outside ones of this height, and then you do the tallest ones. Torque spec on the studs, putting them into the block, 120 to even 190 inch-pounds if you want to get really wild up there. But once you start going to that high, you don't have enough adjustment to set all the height correctly on them. And the only reason you're worried about the height is maybe because you want to make sure you get the same bite on all the threads for the nut that fastens the head on there. So there's two of them that are actually shorter, and I think you can even see it in this video. You see the second one in is a little bit shorter, but just a hair. There's another one. Let's see if we can spot it. Oh, it's the end one. You can't reference it to anything really. Let's see if we can. Sure enough. And we look down the row and you can see that other one's shorter. The second one's a little shorter. So when I set the head on there with the lead head gasket, there's a single thread that's still not grabbing on the nut. Something you might worry about, might not have to. This motor's out of a Jetta Mark IV, so maybe that's the ish. I don't know. I was thinking about even putting some sort of a pill that's, 100 thousandths tall or something like that. Whenever I take the straight edge across it, and that one's much shorter, and it measures the same shortness as that one. So there's something with the machining. I don't know. Maybe somebody knows. Somebody can figure it out. So back to the video. So we got 20 head studs again. We're trying to align not only height wise and then torque spec. Once we get the torque spec down, then we set the height on them. We kind of adjust them back and forth until they're all even. Right? Knock down the high ones. You'll see the thing rock. Knock it down. You'll take a light to the back side of it. It doesn't have to be perfect within thousandths with a feeler gauge or anything like that. You just don't want to see light through them. So we got the head going on. We're trying to stab 20 of these studs in there. If they're doing this number, you're not even going to be able to get the cylinder head on there. It's going to stop on the studs. So what we're looking at is, you can see on some of these, there's that shiny brass mark. Let's see if there's any more. There's another one. There's another brass mark. So what I'm doing is I'm straightening them all out. I take rags and I cover the motor, cover all the cylinders. I'll take a brass punch and I'll tap it in those directions that I need it to go. And I'm using brass because if any does fall in there, then it might not damage anything, but it definitely won't damage the studs. And I'm even using a brass hammer. So even with all the studs completely straight, then you still got to worry about getting the cylinder head completely flat in this direction and completely flat in this direction. So probably need a second pair of hands to do it correctly. And the reason I'm telling you that is because if you don't get it on there and it goes on there canted, you get a bunch of aluminum shavings that get shaved off on the threads. Could potentially fall inside of here. Could potentially mess up your spec if you're going with a multi-layer sheet metal gasket like I am. So here's the cylinder head. Just cleaning all the particulates off of it. Decided not to get the surface machined because it was within the 4,000 spec that they're asking for. even on the diagonal, even on the, the exhaust side. There's no ruffle potato chipping going on the exhaust side yet. I think this motor only had 100,000 miles on it. So, got all the valve train put in it, got all the porting done on it. Sat there and kicked around the idea of bench flowing it, but I don't think any of the guys in town know what they're doing with the bench flow. And they want too much for it, and it's going to take way too much time. I'm on a budget, I'm on a time crunch. My theory is it's probably going to be, if not as turbulent as stock or as the original cast, if not a little bit better. So there's always that to judge on. I spent the same amount of time on them. I tried to make them as uniform as possible, even to the point to where I didn't dig out certain spots in each of them all the way down into the port. So went too long on this video already, but I'm reusing the bolts, the studs I mean. I got a whole nother set. I could have sworn that the washers that I was using had chamfers on them, and I lost one on the disassembly of another motor that had these studs. And I was sitting there looking for it, and I was like, man, I don't remember them being smushed, or I don't know what you'd call that. They're stamped metal. They're stamped out of a sheet, and then probably rolled to the correct thickness, and then you can see the sanding lines on them back and forth, that they actually sanded it down to the final thickness. So these washers are very crucial. You can't just go use any kind of washer. I'm probably explaining this to dummies, but I'm sorry, not dummies, experts. But I went ahead and I went and ordered washers before I found the 20th one. And I went to go order a pair of them, and they wanted like $11 for the pair. And then they, and I'm looking at it like for like a 10-pack, they wanted $11. So I went and ordered 2 10-packs. Just to get all new washers. And then I ended up I'm gonna not even use them, because I plan on putting another motor together. Wicked. But the other good side behind it is there's extremely, extremely hard washers. And I'm actually gonna use 10 or so on the harness for the car, maybe even more. Maybe even all of them on the harness. Brand new. Yeah, too much information. Side note, if you're a brave pinball machine expert, then you probably noticed that this stud doesn't bottom out into a hole. So what you're going to do is put some pretty awesome Loctite. If you're a brave toaster, you're going to put green. If you know you're going to be pulling the motor apart here pretty soon, go ahead and put red. Put a gracious amount. Let it set up for a couple of days. Don't just start assembling it after you put that together. I know you're giddy. I know you want to. Just let it dry. Let it dry. This is the information that came with the head gasket, and you're not going to be paying attention to the torque sequence. 40, 60, 90 degrees, 90 degrees. You're going to be following the ARP specs, but you're going to still want to do this torque sequence here. Don't be messing around with the torque sequence, okay? Because it's required, okay? Got the cylinder head torqued down. There's 2 layers of copper coat on the gasket. Got the ports taped up and the spark plug holes, because I don't have any spark plugs in there yet. Got the ARP moly lube on the head, on the bottom side of the washer, on the top side of the washer, on the bottom side of the nut, on the stud, and on the inside of the nut. Put lube on every single spot, every single surface that's going to possibly rotate. oil went in to install the studs. I installed them at 142 inch-pounds into the block, but about 5 of them turned. And it's not crucial as long as you get them down to the torque spec. This is a Mark IV cylinder head, so I got to block off the secondary air injection port right there, and then I have to install my valve cover studs out of the other head. We went 20, 40, 60, and then I wanted to feel a good rotation and a good final torque spec on the last one, so we went from 60 foot-pounds to 90 foot-pounds. No, sorry, 96 foot-pounds. And you can't find a good conversion calculator for clamping force on the internet. Just jotting some numbers down, and it's about the square inches of the cylinder head. Probably about 110,000 pounds of clamping force. Someone proved me wrong. So, figure that out yourself. Looking at the part numbers on the lifters, I didn't get the lightweight ones. I got the OEM ones. So, it's an 050, and then it's an H instead of AD. Maybe, I think. I don't know. Wanted to get y'all up to date. Let y'all know what's going on.